You bad doctor. You kill Indian children. Now look here, Timaeus. I've told you before, I haven't killed your children or your people. It's a sickness called measles. It's killing some of our white people, too. Don't you understand? We no like 'em white medicine. It have evil spirit. You leave mission. You not welcome here. Dr. Marcus Whitman and his wife Narcissa had come out west as missionaries, traveling all the way from Boston clear across the wilderness to the then unknown territory called Oregon. The story goes that back in 1831, before the Whitmans had come, some Nez Perce Indians received a vision of the white man's God and his holy book, the Bible. Indian chiefs made a 2,000-mile journey to St. Louis requesting that white men come and live among them and teach them of God's ways. The word got back fast as greased lightning to the American Board of Foreign Missions, and so the mission decided to send out William Henry Gray, Reverend Spalding, and Dr. Marcus Whitman. Both the Spaldings and the Whitmans brought their wives. These were the first white women to ever travel west by wagon. Dr. Whitman and Narcissa finally made it through swollen rivers, freezing weather, high mountain passes, clear to the mouth of the Columbia River. They built a fort called Fort Walla Walla and began their great mission work, teaching the Indians how to read and write, speak English, how to farm. And before too long, they were taught about the white man's God and how his son, Jesus, had died for them. The nearby Nez Perce Indians, where the Spaldings lived, responded real well. Many were becoming baptized as Christians. It didn't go so well where Marcus Whitman was. The Cayuse didn't like them there. They were scaring off the wild game. They didn't cotton to the idea of white folks coming out scaring their game either. They didn't like their white man religion, and they hated farming. I wish I could say that the Whitmans and the others working at the mission had a great time, but it seems that they had problems at every turn. Their home flooded one winter, and then their baby girl drowned by the little creek next to their home after a church service on Sunday. Tragedy plagued them year after year, and yet despite these traumas, they remained faithful to the Lord and did not despair in the least. As immigrants came by on the Oregon Trail heading west, they often stopped at the mission to get some civilization that the fort offered out there in the wilderness. Seeing new faces called for a time of celebration. There were joyous occasions of dancing and fiddle music, telling stories, laughing, singing gospel favorites. But the straw that finally broke the camel's back and cost the mission a great price was the very white immigrants that they entertained at the mission. Narcissa Whitman wrote in her journal, 1844, the following.
Here we are, one family alone, a waymark, as it were, or center post, about which multitudes will or must gather this winter, and these we must feed and warm to the extent of our powers.
They did extend their love, and that love was much needed. Settlers would have died had Dr. Marcus Whitman's medicine and the knowledge of its skill not been there at the mission. However good his medicine may have been, many did die among the whites and the Indians when an epidemic of measles hit in 1847. Many whites could shake the measles because of antibodies that they'd built up over the centuries known to the white people. But the Indians had not known such things as measles or smallpox, and when the Cayuse Indian children died, they became hostile. The Indians saw the white medicine help white people, and when they took it, it seemed that their tribe continued to die. So they thought that they were being poisoned by the white people to take their land. The few remaining Indians grew desperate. Over half of their tribe died of measles in 1847. So by November of that year, Tamahias, chief of the Cayuse, snuck up behind Dr. Whitman's back while he was writing at his desk and tomahawked him in the head. Dr. Whitman, 45 years old, stood to his feet and stumbled into the living room, fell on the floor, and slowly bled to death. The Indians broke into the mission houses, shooting, screaming, and tomahawking as many white settlers as they could get. Dr. Whitman's wife, Narcissa, took some of the mission children and hid with them in an upstairs room. One of the Indians told her if she'd come down peaceably, she and the children would not be hurt. So she trusted him and came down the stairs, but the Indian lied and she was shot in the chest. She ran out the front door of her house, fell down in the yard, only to be tomahawked to death by other men and women of the Indian tribe. By nightfall, the Indians danced around with wild screams, feeling victorious over their day's activities. This ended the gospel movement by missionaries out west among the Indians for several years. I'd like to close with this thought. Several days before Marcus Whitman died, some of the kind Christian Cayuse Indians warned him that his life was in danger and to leave. He'd considered leaving soon, but he told them that he was totally committed to working among them, even if it would cost him his life. But Marcus Whitman didn't realize that it would not only cost him his life, but the life of his dear wife and 12 other mission workers, men, women, and children. Jesus talks about the cost of following him in Matthew 10:37 through 39. Jesus said, "If you love your father or mother more than me, you're not worthy of being mine. If parents love their sons or daughters more than me, they're not worthy of being mine. If you refuse to take up your cross and follow me, you're not worthy of being mine. If you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you give it up for me, you will save it." Dr. Marcus Whitman, Narcissa, and 12 others gave up their life for working among the Indians. Even though it set them back for several years, Marcus Whitman, Narcissa, and others entered eternal life. The cost of following Jesus cost them their life. I wonder if you and I would be willing to give up our life for Jesus Christ. I believe many listening to this devotion love Jesus to the point of death, and all I can say is bless God for you.